All right, we're back. I put good in quotation marks because it's like, well, I mean, good sort of general principles, but not necessarily the best performance appraisal system for everybody, is what I'm going to highlight here. So, good performance appraisal system will be well received by rate E's. So, I have this cartoon that says, my performance review says I have trouble accepting responsibility. Is that my fault? So that's a defensive employee. So I don't know if it's the rating system that is the problem here, but a good performance appraisal system will be well received not because the employee agrees with every single thing, like this person's defensive and says it's not my fault that I'm unable to accept responsibility. But it's well received in as much as the employee is able to say, well, it looks like these questions were appropriate. The data that you used was accurate. Maybe I don't like the way it makes me look, but I have to agree that it was a fair appraisal. On the other hand, it might be that the employee is like, wow, I love this appraisal system. It's really like I'm a superstar, it looks like. It could be either of those, but the point is you don't want people who are like mad when they receive their performance appraisal. Based on carefully documented behaviors. So, for example, this is a bad review in this cartoon where all the employer says is, you suck. That is not carefully documented. That's a little glossing of a performance appraisal. We would like to see something more specific. Please delineate for this employee the ways in which this employee sucks, right? Like tell us all the things. Honestly, I would like you as a performance appraiser to maybe mix the you suck comments in with, and this is some place where you shine, and here's some place where you suck. But mix it up, but use carefully documented behaviors. Give specific case ideas, like specific things that you saw. Maybe this is a salesperson. You go, wow, your Q3 numbers were great. And I see that you really fostered some new sales and really shook the bushes and got a lot of people on board. And, we really appreciate that. Like very specific behaviors, right? Focused on important performance criteria. So here we have another cartoon. He's holding up a flaming hoop and he says, Johnson, get in here. It's time for your performance review. And he's expecting Johnson to come jump through the flaming hoop. That doesn't probably, unless this is a circus and this person's act involves diving through a flaming hoop, I don't think this is probably a relevant performance review. I'm going to say probably there are other things that are more important than being able to jump through a hoop. That determines whether this person is performing well on the job, right? We want to make sure that we have important performance criteria that have been determined through job analysis. Inclusive of many perspectives, right? So we have lots of different people who maybe have insight into this person's performance, providing information, in this case, tacking on little stickers that gives their view of how this person performs. It's kind of like the Amazon reviews or other, places where you can buy things online where they have customer reviews. And, you always kind of hope that you'll be able to find some item that's like better rated and hopefully you're wise enough to recognize, well, if it has a 4.7 and there's only one review, that's not as meaningful as like a 4.2 with 1,000 reviews, right? And some of them are probably 5s and some of them are probably 2s, but the average is settling out at 4.2. That's pretty good over 1,000 people. And so, you take it into perspective, how many different people have commented and what their personal disgruntlement might be about and stuff, and make a good decision based on that. Flip it over. And that's what a performance appraisal system should do for employees. It should be forward looking. We want to focus on improvement. So here we have some chickens apparently who have jobs, and it says you need to put more passion into your work. And the other chicken says, but my job is boring. And then the first chicken says, true, but your boredom lacks passion. I guess chickens might be, laying eggs as their job. I'm not sure what these chickens do for a living. But you want to focus on the future. You don't want to say vague things like you need to put more passion into your work. Maybe you want to say something like, here's how I see you having performed on these very specific behaviors to date. And what I would like to see happen in the next quarter or the next 6 months is that you do these very specific things to change. Not put more passion, but maybe cultivate 2 new leads in the next 6 months, or some, I don't know what would be a reasonable request in the sales world. I'm just making stuff up. But these kinds of like very specific, what I would like to see from you in the future. And that helps an employee to know how to grow, how to change their behavior so that they will be more in alignment with what the organization is looking for. Finally, it has a specific goal. Most do not. A lot of times performance appraisals are just sort of an opportunity to like check a box, give you, okay, I gave you an appraisal, give you a little bit of feedback. A lot of times it's based on just what I saw in the past week, and that's it. We want to have the specific goal where we are deciding whether improving the individual performance will improve organizational performance. Like, is it worth our while to try and help cultivate this employee? Is this as much as we're going to get out of them? Would they do better if we put them in another position? Like, these are the things we should be thinking about when we're reviewing an employee's performance. This cartoon says, I don't have time to write performance reviews, so I'll just criticize you in public from time to time. Just every random once in a while embarrass you in front of everyone else, right? That's not very good a performance appraisal system, I have to say. First off, public, no. Second off, whenever the thought comes to my mind, no, that's probably going to be not thoughtful feedback. It's probably going to be reactive feedback. So we want to have a specific goal that helps the employee to grow and develop, and that is going to meet the organization's goal of having high functioning, employees. All right. So what would be a bad performance appraisal? Okay. These, according to Reddit, are quotes from actual performance evaluations. Now, obviously, I can't confirm them, but they are funny. Since my last report, this employee has reached rock bottom and shows signs of starting to dig. His men would follow him anywhere, but only out of morbid curiosity. I would not allow this employee to breed. That's not very nice. Okay, this associate is really not so much a has-been as more of a definitely won't be. He would be out of his depth in a parking lot puddle. This young lady has delusions of adequacy. This employee should go far, and the sooner, the better. This employee is depriving a village somewhere of an idiot. He sets low personal standards and then consistently fails to achieve them. Okay, I don't know if any of these are true. Imagine if they were. They might be. I mean, there are some people who are in positions where they get to do performance appraisals where they are not nice people or mature people or people who should be allowed to do performance appraisal. I think we can all agree that none of this is anything that you should ever say to any employee, and certainly not in writing. This is going to get you fired if you wrote this stuff down. So we don't want to do bad. We want to follow the previous slide and strive for good performance appraisals, right? And a lot of times IO psychologists can really help employers to develop better performance appraisals, because a lot of times they're not thinking about the purpose of the performance appraisal the way that an IO psychologist can help them to think about it. Psychology is really helpful for a lot of business people. Now, like I said, no one enjoys being appraised, but I would like to argue nobody likes the performance appraisal process at all. This cartoon says, you're out here because you're supposed to receive a performance review. I'm out here because I'm supposed to give one. Nobody really likes to do it. And in fact, a lot of appraisers put it off and don't really think about it, don't really pay attention to any relevant behaviors, they just put it out of their mind until the last minute when it needs to be done. And that can lead to a lot of different biased appraisals of what's going on. I mean, it makes sense. We all put off till the last minute anything that's above and beyond what we normally have to do every day just to sort of keep going at our work. But by not even thinking about it, because I don't want to do it, because I dread having to do a performance appraisal, it can lead to a lot of bias in the appraisal. So let's talk about performance management, which is really the ultimate goal of performance appraisal. It's a motivational system of individual performance approval, right? So we want performance approval. I think that's what I said. Performance improvement is what I meant. So what the purpose of performance appraisal is to facilitate performance management, help employees to grow and develop and become their best self. It's motivational. It's not punitive, is I guess what I want to say. So performance appraisal is part of it. Continuous coaching and feedback is another way to manage performance. That is oftentimes used with managers. objective goal setting. I'm making a little flower. Developmental planning. So all four of these things are linked to company goals. So they should be developed with a mindset of trying to achieve some goal within the organization. All of them should be implemented on a continuous cycle, not just annually. I mean, if any of you have ever been performance appraised, I'll bet it was once a year, more than likely. There are some organizations who have started to do like biannual, so they're doing it every 6 months. It probably should be more like quarterly. And, ideally, anytime there's something noteworthy, good or bad, it should be provided as feedback at the time. And I'll get into more reasons why that's so important. So again, I don't know why jumping through a hoop is such a common stand-in for performance appraisal and performance management. At least this one's not flaming. So we'll have to say that's an improvement over the last cartoon I showed you. But the idea that performance management is really just trying to teach the employees how to jump through the organization's hoops is not really the purpose of performance appraisal or performance management. The goal of performance management is really to try and help that individual to become their best self. Presumably they're in this job because of all the jobs in all the world, they wanted to be in this field doing this kind of thing. Maybe they didn't know how this particular organization was going to turn out, and there's like those kinds of things they could be disgruntled by. But more than likely, they picked this job in this field because they thought it would be something that they would be good at and something that they might enjoy as a career. So when we talk about motivating an individual to improve their performance, yes, it's self-serving on the part of the organization. They want employees who are doing good jobs. That's true. But there's also that flip side where the employee should welcome performance management because they're trying to become the best employee they can be. Even if they're thinking to themselves, as soon as I can, I'm getting out of this organization because it's not what I thought it was going to be. They want to go somewhere else. They want to probably do something still in this basic field. Not always. I mean, people change careers. But I might want to still be in the same basic field. And so why don't I suck up as much feedback, growth, and development as I possibly can while I'm at this organization, right? So it's not just a one-way street where we're trying to make employees jump through hoops. It's a two-way street where we're making employees jump through hoops, but we're also helping those employees to become their best selves. All right. So who can give performance ratings? Where can it come from? Well, multi-source feedback, we oftentimes call it a 360-degree appraisal, allows for lots of different people from lots of different perspectives relative to the employee. Maybe some are supervisors, maybe some are subordinates, maybe some are clients, maybe some are peers in the same field but not the same organization. There's lots of ways that you could kind of reach out and ask for feedback about an employee. And so we call this 360 degrees because we're hoping that it's coming from all angles, that, all the different ways to view this employee, we're getting feedback, right? So multi-source feedback. One of the things that it includes that a lot of performance appraisals don't is this upward appraisal rating where subordinates rate their own supervisor. This is a great idea. And I mean, it's what we do when we have students evaluate professors. It's something that some organizations allow employees to rate their supervisors. I'm thinking about, again, still in academia, like faculty rate their chair and faculty rate the dean and the provost and other people who are above them in the organizational structure. And the reason for that is that if you're being negatively viewed by the people who you're supervising, that's just as bad as if you're being negatively viewed by the people who are supervising you, right? And so having subordinates rate people, their supervisors, can be really useful. Hold on a second. Okay. But I want to mention one thing. I thought maybe I had a graphic. I'm going to mention one thing about that, though, which is that subordinates rating their supervisors might feel kind of risky to the subordinate. I know at another school, we were rating our chair, And we were provided with a URL to a, supposedly anonymous rating system that asked us for our name and our position. It's like, is this anonymous? I mean, clearly it's not anonymous because you asked me for my name, but is it going to be withheld from my supervisor? Are they going to know that I'm the one who said this? When you do your student evaluations, you don't put your name on it. So we go into this digital thing, this URL, and we start to fill our information out, and all of us stopped as soon as it asked for our names. We all kind of conferred with each other. We're like, what is happening with this? The school really vehemently denied that ever any of our information would be disclosed to our supervisors, but these are people who are making teaching assignments and things, and we're thinking there could be some blowback if I have something negative to say about my supervisor. And that's a risk. Now imagine that's a bunch of academics who are rating their chair. I mean, we're not in very big risk by giving our chair negative feedback. Imagine if you ask a subordinate who works the line at a factory to performance rate their supervisor, and they're concerned that their supervisor is going to know that they're the one who said this. Maybe there's something negative that needs to be said. Maybe it needs to be said. This is something honestly that the organization needs to know, that this is how subordinates view the supervisor. But the subordinates might be afraid to say it because of fear of retaliation. And so that's one little downside of the 360 degree that I wanted to mention. So the basic assumptions are that participants are happier because they're involved in the process. I'm not sure if that assumption is completely true either, because nobody likes doing performance evaluations, including the people who are getting to evaluate their supervisor. Like, people don't necessarily enjoy the process of evaluating anyone or being evaluated. So I'm not sure if that's happy is the best word I could have used. Idiosyncrasies or biases of any single rater are going to be averaged out. Let's think back to those Amazon ratings that I mentioned, where one super disgruntled person gets averaged out by all the neutral to positive reviews, right? One bad apple isn't going to ruin the whole performance rating. And then the other benefit, I guess, about the 360 degrees, that multiple perspectives give us a broader view of performance. The view that the supervisor has is narrow by definition. The view that the client has is narrow but different from the supervisor. The coworker has another narrow but different. And by the time you've gotten all these narrow but difference, you've got a pretty good picture of that person's performance. So that's the premise of why it would be worth our while to do multi-source feedback whenever we can. So how? Be honest about how the ratings are going to be used. Help the employees who receive the feedback to interpret the ratings and deal with the ratings. Avoid presenting too much information. You don't have to tell them every single thing that every single rater said. You can maybe, as the person who's delivering the ratings, pull them together and look for themes. Oh, now we can give it to AI and say, hey, AI, look at all of these and give us the theme. So the person who's receiving it doesn't have to hear every single detail, some of which might sound kind of negative, even as it's mixed in with some positive. So avoid presenting too much information. Here we have a reviewer who says, you missed all of your goals. And then the employee says, because of poor management. I'll go into more detail when I do my 360 degree rating of you. That's one of the things about the 360 is that you can't, it's less likely that you'd have one supervisor who is being mean to an employee when they know full well that employee gets a turn at rating them too. So it's kind of a little control. So here we have the employer going, well, what I meant to say is you're doing great. And the employee's like, that's what I meant to say too, right? So now one downside of that is that everybody's being maybe more neutral than they would have been if they knew that they weren't going to be rated by those same people. So pros and cons, right? All right, let's go ahead and take a little break here, and we'll come back and talk about different ways to do the ratings.